All right, so this is lesson 5.6 out of the Decimals and Fractions book. If you're in Mrs. Walker's class, these notes are being entered on page 47, and you may want to pause and enter it into your table of contents if you're making your notes into your notebook. Otherwise, I'll just head this page as lesson 5.6. And I'm going to do some abbreviating on the title because it's a long title. Lesson 5.6, multiply and divide fractions and whole numbers. Now you can see why I had to abbreviate. Multiply and divide fractions and whole numbers. That's the title of this lesson. The warm-up is basically a refresher of lesson 5.5. It has 4 problems, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the problems are 3/4 times 41, 4/7 times 20, 1/9 times 80, and 2/5 times 24. Now, they are not asking for the values on this. This is what we will learn how to do today. Yesterday's, well, whenever it is you're actually watching this, the previous lesson, 5.5, was about estimating problems like this. So I'm going to put over here, you don't have to do this, but so that anybody who's watching this will know what's expected from these problems here. Estimate using compatible numbers. Now, if you're watching this lesson and you haven't worked out lesson 5.5 and you don't know how to estimate these problems, not knowing how to estimate these won't get in the way of learning today's lesson. Today's lesson is going to be about finding the value of problems like these, and not knowing how to estimate the value isn't going to be a prerequisite for what we do today. However, what you do have to know how to do is multiply and divide fractions. So if you haven't looked over lesson 5.2 and 5.4, then today's lesson might be difficult for you. But if you have worked through all of those lessons leading up to 5.6, today's lesson is really a piece of cake. It's pretty much it's pretty much the same thing we've already learned, multiplying and dividing fractions with one tiny little step added to it. And so yeah, this one goes pretty fast. All right, so let's write our I can statement. This is what we expect to know by the time you get to the end of this lesson. I can find products and quotients. I can find products and quotients of fractions and whole numbers. So, like I said, it's going to be how do we find the value of numbers like these in the warm-up, not just estimate them, actually work them out. Okay, I can find products and quotients of fractions and whole numbers. That is what we expect to learn in this lesson. So with my dark green pencil, I'll separate the warm-up portion of our lesson with the lesson notes portion of our lesson and move everything on up. Okay, so first thing I want to do is put my cutout notes portion right here in the typical upper left part of where we put our notes. So I'll get the glue going on here. Come on, glue. Tiny bit. All right, tiny bit. Here we go. Tiny tadpoles, no big dots. No papa dots, no baby dots, just tiny tadpoles. Definitely no toaster strudel. All right. So right here in the corner, press it down. Okay, so we are multiplying and dividing fractions, multiply or divide fractions and whole numbers. Okay, so I always highlight what is it that these steps are telling me to do in it with my yellow highlighter right there. And then my students know step 1 is always circled with the light blue pencil. So step 1 says, write the whole number as a fraction with a denominator of 1. And as always, I just go through these really quick, and then we go into it, and then I explain and show what all these steps mean over here in the notes. So step 2, so step 2 isn't in these notes, and I am going to insert it in here. Step 2 is always circled with a orange pencil, and I think that they should have put in there. First, we write the whole number as a fraction with a denominator over 1, and then we cross reduce. That's part of our multiplying and dividing process, okay? And so that's in orange. And then our third step is to do the actual multiplying or dividing, whatever they're asking for. And that I circle in brown. And then our fourth step, I know it says 3, but to me, what is our fourth step, final step, in light green is to write the answer in its simplest form. That's always our last step when we're multiplying, dividing, or adding and subtracting fractions. Okay, so here's what it means. With my dark, let's see, where is it? Black pencil, black colored pencil. I am going to put find the product. Okay, we'll do the product once first. The product. Sorry about that. All right. Find the product. Okay, so here's the problem we're going to work out. Oops, sorry about that. I hit the tripod. Okay, here we go. Find the product. Okay, 5/8 times 88. All right, that's the problem. Okay, the first step says to write the whole number as a fraction with a denominator of 1. Well, 88 is our whole number, and all that means is to rewrite it as a fraction over 1, because we know that doesn't change its value. Any number over 1 is that number, right? So we're going to rewrite this problem as 5/8. I'm going to change my symbol to the dot. I just prefer this dot over the X. With 88 over the denominator of 1. Okay, that's our step 1. Putting that 88 over the denominator of 1. Okay, now step 2 is to cross reduce if you can. And you can. 8 goes into itself once, and 8 goes into 88 11 times. See, and this is where cross-reducing really comes in handy, because if we didn't, we'd have to figure out, scratch out over on the side here, 5 times 88, and we'd have a really big number there, which isn't that big of a deal. Oh yeah, and then 8 times 1, and then we'd have to figure out how many times 8 goes into that really big number there to get it into its simplest form. And now we don't have to do that, because 5 times 11 is pretty simple. But the next, let's see, where's my brown pencil? Next step then is to do the multiplying or dividing, and this one we're multiplying. So 5 times 11 is 55. 55. And 1 times 1 is 1. And we know we can't leave that as 55 over 1. To simplify it, which is our final step, write the answer in simplest form, our answer would be 55. And in Mrs. Walker's class, we circle our final answers in red. And so that's how we do it. So in this lesson, truly, it's simply multiplying or dividing fractions as we learned in 5.2 and 5.4, only we're putting the whole number over a 1. And that's all we're adding to our knowledge base in this lesson. So anyway, let's do one more of the product, finding the products. This time I'm going to do 5/6 times 14, which equals, all right, so 5/6 times, first step is to write that whole number over a denominator of 1, okay? And the second step is to cross reduce, if we can, cross simplify, cross reduce, whichever you prefer. So 2 can go into 6 3 times, 2 can go into 14 7 times. Nothing I can do with the 1 and the 5, they have to stay the same. Now the next step is to do the multiplying. So I multiply my numerators across. 5 times 7 is 35. And 3 times 1 is, of course, 3. Now that's an improper fraction. We can't leave it that way. So we've got to figure out how many times does 3 go into 35. Well, 3 can go into 35, I know 11 times, because 3 times 11 is 33. That leaves me with 2 left over. And I just scooch over the denominator for the final answer. 11 2/3 is simplified. So I can circle that as my answer. All right? So those are 2 examples for how to find the product. Now let's just move down here for how to find the quotient. It's the same thing, guys. We just do it just like we would any other time we were dividing fractions. And the only extra step is simply putting the whole number over a 1. All right? So, let's see. Black pencil, and we'll write here, find the quotient. Okay, find the quotient. And we'll do a couple of examples of find the quotient. All right? First problem. 7 divided by 3/5. All right? So, even though up here, when we were multiplying, the whole number was second, the whole number is first down here. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. The steps are exactly the same. So, what we have to do first is put the whole number over 1. So, we were going to put that 7 over 1. Okay? And we know when we're dividing, we don't really divide. It's copy the first fraction over, which is kind of what we did. I mean, 7 is the same as 7 over 1. Then times, change that division symbol to a multiplication symbol, and then flip the second one. Remember, we haven't changed that in our instructions, so I'm going to flip it now. The only thing different I did was take that whole number and put it over a 1. So it was still copy times flip, right? Copy times flip. All right, so my next step is to see if I can cross reduce, and I can't. There's nothing I can do with 3 and 7, and 1 is, if I have a 1 in my combination, then that means it's already simplified as far as it could be. So my next step is to multiply or divide, and we are multiplying. Even though it's a division problem, we change it into a multiplying problem. So 7 times 5 is 35. 1 times 3 is 3. This is an improper fraction. It cannot stay that way. It must be made into a mixed number in order to be considered simplified. So 3 can go into 35. Is this the same as, oh, interesting. I'm not exactly sure how this happened, but it looks like we're going to wind up with the same answer. Look, it was 35/3 and 35/3. Well, that makes it easy. We know our answer is going to be 11 2/3. All right, so that's an example of how we find the quotient of a problem that is a fraction and a whole number. Same thing as we did when we were simply dividing them. This is the only added step. So let's do just one more. This time we have 4 divided by 6/7 equals. All right, so step 1 is to put that whole number over 1. So we have 4 over 1. But we are also changing that division problem into a multiplication problem, right? So it's copy the first fraction, times, change the division into a time symbol, and flip the second one. So now we have 7 over 6. Let me read that okay. 7 over 6. All right. Next step is to cross reduce if we can. And we can. 4 and 6 here. So 2 can go into 4 2 times, and 2 can go into 6 3 times. And there's nothing we can do with 1 and 7. The 1 there tells me it's fully simplified. All right, so next is to multiply these, even though it's a division problem. We now are multiplying. 2 times 7 is 14. 14 over 1 times 3 is 3. This is an improper fraction, so I know I have to turn it into a mixed number to be fully simplified. 3 can go into 14 4 times. I know that because 3 times 4 is 12. That leaves me with 2 left over, and I scooch over the denominator, and I get an answer of 4 2/3. And I circle that with my red pencil. All right, guys, so that's how to multiply and divide fractions and whole numbers. Let's see if I can get the whole lesson part of the notes in there. So if you need to pause here while you work, you can do that. Pretty simple, right? If you've already been through 5.2 and 5.4 and know how to multiply and divide fractions, then this step 1 was the only thing that was added to this lesson. Pretty easy there. Okay, so let's take a look then at your practice problems. Practice problems. All right, so practice problems. I don't think I can get them all. No, I can't get them all. All right, I can't get them all in one frame and still be good and visible. So practice problems here. You have 2 multiplying ones and 2 dividing ones. Use your notes. You should be able to do that. And then let me pause for a minute so you can pause if you want to. Then I'll talk about the word problems at the bottom. Okay, so the word problems at the bottom. The first one is a multiply and the second one is a division problem. But I want to talk briefly about, if I hadn't told you that, how would you know? Because it's going to be obvious on your worksheet which ones are division and which ones are multiplication because they divide them up that way. But on your test, it won't be obvious. You'll have to figure out what is it they're asking you to do, right? So let's review one of the things that I know for sure. If I was looking at this one here, I can see 2/5 of their 30 games. What did we learn about that word of? That word of means 2/5 times whatever it is they're asking about. Okay. Now down here where Marita has, she uses 3/4 of a jalapeno for every batch of salsa, and she has 13 peppers. The total of what she has is 13. We want to know how many batches she can make if she uses this much for each. So the total is getting divided by what we want to break it down to. Okay, so it's going to be 13 divided by 3/4. Now I'm telling you that so you can start figuring out for yourself how you can notice these differences, because on your test the multiplication and division word problems will be mixed and you'll have to decide which one it is. All right, so if you want to pause here and do these word problems, and then I'll come back in a minute and show you how to do them. Okay, so let's work out our practice problems. Here we go. Number 1, 2/3 times 15. Well, step 1 says that, well, I'm just going to put my 2/3 over here. This is a multiplication problem. And step 1 says I put the whole number over 1. Okay, I need to cross reduce if I can. Yes, 3 goes into itself once and 3 goes into 15 5 times. This is a 1, so I know this is as simplified as it can get. So 2 times 5 is 10. 1 times 1 is 1. 10 over 1 is not simplified. I need to put it down as a 10. Where's my red pencil? Excuse me a second. All right, and so then that's my final answer. That's how I know that it is reduced as far as it can go. Okay, number 2. 4/9 times 12 equals 4/9 times 12 over 1. All right, can I cross reduce? Yes. 3 can go into 9 3 times. 3 can go into 12 4 times. All right, now I have 4 times 4 is 16 over 3 times 1 is 3. That's an improper fraction. That's not simplified. So 3 can go into 16 5 times. I know that because 3 times 5 is 15. So that leaves me 1 left over, and scooch over the denominator. So my answer is 5 1/3. All right, number 3. Now we're dividing. All right, so I still have to put that 6 over a 1, 6 over a denominator of 1, but now I'm switching it to multiplication and flipping the second fraction. 4 over 3, right? Copy, times, flip. All right, so cross reduce. Yes, 3 can go into itself once. 3 can go into 6 2 times. 2 times 4 is 8 over 1. That is not simplified until I bring that 8 down by itself. And circle it. That's my final answer. All right. Okay, number 4. Also a division problem. Put that whole number over a denominator of 1. We're changing it to a multiplication problem and flipping the second fraction. So we've got 3 over 2. Can we cross reduce? Yes. 2 can go into itself once. 2 can go into 8 4 times. Now 4 times 3 is 12. 1 times 1 is 1. So my answer is, wait a minute, did I make a mistake here? Did I flip it? 2 goes into itself once, 4, 12. No, I didn't. Okay. 12. I hope I didn't make a mistake. My notes say it should be something else, but that looks right to me. Sometimes I make mistakes. If I do, you guys let me know so I can fix my video. 8 over 1, flip the 3 over 2. I'm just doing a double check, guys. You're probably watching and already found my error, huh? 2 goes into itself once, 2 goes into 8 4 times, 12. No, I don't see an error. Okay, well, maybe my notes were just wrong. All right, number 5. Captain University's men's basketball team. They won 2/3 of their 30 games. And I'm just going to take my red pencil and immediately circle this, because this tells me I'm dealing with a multiplication problem. So I want to have 2/5. It says 2/5 times, and I know that 30 needs to go over a 1. So I'm just going to put it over there right now. Now, can I reduce? Yes. 5 goes into itself once. 5 goes into 36 times. So now I have 12 over 1, which equals 12. 12 games, right? And we need a sentence here. So how many games did they win? They, or you could say the men's basketball team or Captain's University. I'm going to keep it simple here. They won 12 games. They won 12 games. That's our answer on that one. Okay. Now, the last one is Marita uses 3/4 of a jalapeno pepper for each batch of salsa. She has 13 peppers. How many batches can she make? All right, so this is going to be 13 peppers divided by 3/4 of a pepper. All right, now copy, put that 13 over a 1, times, change the division into multiplication, flip the second fraction, equals. All right, cross reduce. There's nothing I can do to cross reduce this. So I've got 13 times 4, which is 52 over 3. And then you're going to have to figure out to the side, how many times does 3 go into 52? Well, I happen to know that it goes into 52 17 times, with 1 left over. Scooch over that denominator. So she can make 17 1/3 batches. So, how many batches can she make? Marita can make 17 1/3 batches. 17 1/3 batches. That's my answer. Okay? All right, so practice problems. If you didn't have any problems working any of these out, then you're in good shape. Let's take a quick look at the worksheet. for lesson 5.6. The worksheet divides your multiplication section and your division section, so you don't have to make those determinations between whether you're supposed to be multiplying or dividing. That makes it a little bit easier for you. But remember, you need to get used to looking for the key words and figuring out how you tell which you're supposed to do, because they will not be divided apart as obviously on the test as they are on this worksheet. All right, so that's all I need to talk to you about the worksheet. Here's your exit ticket. If you want to practice some problems on your exit ticket, hold on, I'll zoom in on that. I will not be giving you the answers to these in this lesson. You may ask your teacher or somebody else who knows how to do this math if you're curious to figure it out, or you may use it at another time in your classes. So that's the end of lesson 5.6. Remember, the only way to learn math is to do math, and mistakes are proof that you're learning.